Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee Talk. I'm so excited to have my friend with me, Lisa. We're going to talk about raising creative children. This is going to be a fun topic. But before we get started, let's go ahead and invite the Lord into our conversation because where He is, that's a great place. So, Lord, we just thank you today. We thank you that I thank you that Lisa has taken time out of her busy schedule to talk to us about raising creative children, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that today that you would guide our conversation and help us to learn all we need to learn. In your son's name we pray. Amen. So,
Amen.
Lisa, the name of our podcast is Coffee Talk. So I have to ask you the question, do you drink coffee?
Yes, I do. And if I add enough flavored creamer to where there's no coffee flavor left, it's perfect.
So you actually like more the cream than the coffee.
Yes,
That's funny.
but I'm desperate for the caffeine.
Definitely. Like you have just one a day or more
Just
than
one a
one?
day in the morning.
Okay.
I start my morning with coffee and my prayer and meditation time.
Okay.
And I really don't drink coffee the rest of the day.
That's me. I had one in the morning. That's it.
Yep.
And if I'm drinking more, it means I'm really tired. But usually I just need one in the morning, and that's to wake me up. And that's
Yes.
it. I'm good. I don't have to have any more. It's usually just an 8 ounce cup. It's not like a big old gulp. It's just a regular cup
Right.
of coffee. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how many kids you have, what do you do, all that stuff.
Well, my name is Lisa, and my family, we moved to Texas so that my husband could go to seminary at Dallas Theological Seminary. And while we lived in Indiana, I met a lot of homeschool families, but there weren't a lot of homeschool opportunities and co-ops at the time. And this was back in, we were in Indiana from 2000, 2008. So when we came to Texas, I was kind of blown away by all of the homeschool opportunities. I never really thought about homeschooling growing up, but when I had my first baby, I was like, I am not ready. I want as much time with this baby as possible. And when she turned 5 and people started asking about kindergarten, I was like, I
Nope.
just am not ready.
Yeah.
And I had an English degree. So I had a high school English education degree where I could teach 6 through 12. And I just thought, I want to teach my kids to read, and I want to go on field trips, and we want to have fun Fridays where we don't do school. And so homeschooling got started. And then when we moved to Texas, I loved that neighborhoods had public schools in the neighborhood, because I was like, ooh, if this homeschooling thing doesn't pan out, I can put them in school right in the neighborhood. Then I found we were one street over from the county line, and that school
Oh,
in our neighborhood we couldn't even go to.
oh goodness.
But it worked out because homeschooling turned out to be a real fun adventure in Texas because so many families do it here. And so anything I don't feel like teaching, I can co-op out into a co-op class, or we've come across so many educators that there's tutoring, and there's, of course, what you do, the online schooling and stuff. And so there's so many options that you can really be selective for your kids based on what their need is.
I
So
totally agree with that, Lisa, because when we
yeah,
lived in Florida, Florida is not a homeschool friendly state.
yeah.
So we at KJ was in a private school then, and then when we moved here, he went to private school too then, but then we pulled him out, and but then I realized, hey, nobody cares here in Texas. Everybody's homeschooling, so we didn't have to tell anybody. We didn't have to do. It was really,
Yep.
I'm a rule follower sort of, so I actually double checked.
Yes.
And there is, I mean, you can
Yep.
pull your kids out. Now it gets more iffy, like about 10th, 11th grade. But the
Yes.
babies, you can just kind of in and out all the time. And I actually
Yes.
appreciated that because I think that it gave us for sure the flexibility of figuring out what is really going to be right fit for our child and how's that
Yes.
working. And so since there's no school police, I'm knocking on the door. I was really
Yeah.
afraid of that, and it really helped to just relax and just like I said, enjoy being a mom. And then
Yeah.
since we're educators, it kind of helped it because we kind of knew what to do. But then if we didn't know, or like for
Right.
KJ, my son needed more of the social piece. But
Yes.
there was so many things I could have done. I did to help him with the social piece as well. And so
Hmm.
that is right into this our topic today, raising creative children. I actually met
Yes.
Lisa because I was teaching at a school where she was teaching at, and I taught both of her children, and I'm. But first of all, they're like the blonde, like you just blonde, beautiful
The
children, just
beautiful
whatever.
babies.
But I remember meeting her husband, the two kids I taught, and then the older kid came, and they're all doing all this creative stuff. I'm like, and then when I started teaching her kids, I'm like, they're extremely, I'm like not just one creative strand, just like all over the place creative. And so I wanted, she definitely was the person who came to my mind with this topic. She's raised, I don't know much about your oldest child, but I know the other three, that they're all creative in some vein. And so I just
Mhm.
want to talk, just kind of talk a little bit about how has it been for you raising creative children?
Well, I think that I have grown up with my children. As they grow, I grow because growing up, my dad was a school principal. He was a principal. My mom was the school secretary, and I basically lived at the private school that my dad directed. And I, um, I feel like when I was in school, the goal was to fit in.
Mhm.
And whoever the popular kids were, they kind of determined what fit
Mhm.
and what didn't. And when I had kids, I just kind of thought, I wonder what it would be like to just kind of free range chicken this thing and discover what they like. But I know that as a mom, I got to explore my creative side and be creative and sing songs to my babies and make up songs about everything from diaper changing to shampoo in their hair, whatever could keep their attention for 5 seconds. And and singing to them in the womb and all of that kind of stuff. And it's funny because they all came out, loving music and loving to explore that. And when they were little, we couldn't afford lessons for everything. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this whole free range thing is they just kind of started, they wanted something and I'd say, okay, we'll find you a guitar, we'll find you a ukulele. And they would explore and teach themselves or watch videos online about how to do it. And Aislinn, one of mine that you taught, she taught herself how to play the ukulele at 8 years old.
Wow.
And her brain just never stopped. And I think the creative children thing, the beauty of things like I have one kiddo with dyslexia, one kiddo with ADHD, there's some anxiety thrown in there. And the crazy thing is when you are open to taking education, whatever direction your kid can handle, based on their personality and their interests, I think you're going to have this broad experience of so many creative things. How do you want it? I loved how every time I walked by your math class, there was like glitter floating in the air. It was glitter and glue everywhere. And I was like, that whole conceptual thing about making math, creating it, just powerful. And I think that as a homeschooler, we got to do that too. We've got crafts and we've got stuff everywhere. We'd make our own flashcards and we'd make our own tools and resources. And even with my daughter with dyslexia, a therapist told me that to help her with, because she didn't have any visual memory, we needed to use all of the different ways to access education, the kinesthetic learner, the visual learner, the auditory learner. And so we just started trying to access every new thing she needed to learn in all of the ways. And she is super creative. My oldest daughter taught herself how to play the guitar, and she is a worship leader at her church. And she
Wow.
does lots of art stuff, painted something for her senior project in college that she donated to the liberal studies department to go up on the wall. And my second daughter taught herself guitar, and she is exploring how to help musicians market themselves on social media. And she's having a fun time with that and very creative. Both my older two daughters are also face painters.
Mhm.
Painting on faces is the
Mhm.
funnest thing. I get to do that too. But and Aislinn, she and Jonathan, they've taught themselves how to crochet, how to make all kinds of things. Aislinn loves to write. I asked her today, I said, what did we do as parents that encouraged your creativity? And she said, Mom, I remember the first time I wrote a story, And you just were like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. What an incredible story. And she said, that just made me want to be more creative.
Oh
And
my
she
gosh.
said, that's what, if parents are raising creative children, when their kid creates something, makes up something, just be excited about it, be excited with them. And so that's kind of been what we've done,
And I,
you
th- and I
know?
think I think I mean you've said so many good points. I think going to back to the way I teach. Actually, I've always taught, but that's because I'm creative in nature. And so I remember I was teaching in Dallas public school system. I was teaching bilingual education, and some kind of way I end up having like we were reading Charlie in the Chocolate Factory in Spanish. I can't remember the title, but I turned the whole room into a chocolate factory, and I had candy
Oh,
bars hanging from the ceiling, and I had all the desks like in butcher brown paper and all this stuff so that the kids can visually see it. And back then it was called a different name, but it was always that's always what I've done. Now it's called more like a project-based learning, I guess. But back then,
mhm.
to me, I'd never understood just taking a book and just learning facts. It was to me, it
Yeah.
was so boring. And I know there's teachers who do that. That was never my style. And so I always
Mhm.
tell my students whenever I taught math that you will never find a math teacher like me because most math teachers are very linear. They're very
Mhm.
logical, very one, two, three. They don't see the creative side. But I always
Yeah.
saw the creative side of how do
Mhm.
I make this make sense to them in a creative way. Obviously, help make sure they understand the concept, but giving them a foundation that they can see, like you said, visually touching it, tactile or kinesthetic moving or something like that. Because to me, it all for most kids. Now you have those kids that don't like that, but for
Mhm.
most of the kids, they really want to have fun in everything they do. And I think with the
Yes.
creative kids, like the ones that you have, having fun helps them to do the hard stuff. So that's my next question.
Yeah.
Sometimes creative kids, creative people can be extremely emotional people. How do I know? I'm one of them. So
Yeah.
how do you get create your creative kids to do something that they don't want to do without having a meltdown?
That is a great one. I think that when, and I'm going to use Aislinn as an example, since you had experience with her in the classroom, I don't think I've seen her enjoy math
Hmm.
since getting to do it in a creative classroom, because in all things, I love creativity, but in math, I'm like, let's look at this workbook, let's figure this out, let's write these numbers, and we follow the curriculum because math is not my favorite; it's my least favorite thing. And so as we work through it, it's kind of like I see as my kids get older, they want to be more independent. They don't want my involvement, and so they do all the fun things first, or they do the English, the history, the writing, the things that they enjoy more. And then when they roll back around to math, it's like pulling teeth to get that math done. Not for Jonathan, he likes doing it and he doesn't like my help.
Yeah.
But for Aislinn, she doesn't want to do it. It's like the tears, all the tears.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where it's like, well, let's sit down and do this together. Or let's, listen to some music while we do it, or let's, something else. That one has been a struggle,
Hmm.
but I do try to cheer her on because she's way harder on herself than she thinks, oh, I'm just terrible at this. But I'm like, you almost passed the TSI in that, and you haven't even finished geometry or had algebra
Wow.
2 yet.
Wow.
So it's hard to motivate in those areas that they don't, and I'm not really sure I have the answer on that one.
Well, I think sometimes there's not an answer, honestly,
Yeah.
Lisa, because I think that sometimes when you have creative children, usually are really deep feeling children or deep, even
Yes.
adults, and so I think sometimes they just have to get used to feeling
Mhm.
uncomfortable with
Yes.
being uncomfortable but it's
Mhm.
not going to go away because I think that's the beauty of being a creative. They call it, now they call them creatives because
Mhm.
we're really loving and feeling and touching, but then on the opposite of that we feel the bad emotions just as much as the good emotions. And so I
Right.
think from a Christian point of view, I guess that's where we have to rely a lot on God. At least I've
Mhm.
learned, because again I am Aislinn. That's why I always gravitate towards the creative kids, because I'm like, I understand what it is to be like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Oh, the world's horrible. Oh, it's great. Because that's
Yes.
what
And
that's
the
what we
world is
do,
now
right?
coming to an end.
For
I'm never going
sure.
to make it.
Absolutely. And so I've had to learn, and I'll be 50, God willing, in 6 weeks. I've learned how to say, okay, I'm gonna always be Chriselle. So I have to
Mhm.
learn how to navigate Chriselle in a world that sometimes is very logical, right? And
Mhm.
how to control those emotions, but then also give them and give them to the right people, right? And or give them to the
Right.
right projects, or not say I can do all this creative stuff, because sometimes you come have creative overload, right? And I
Mhm.
think with Aislinn for sure, because I was so upset when they left, by the way, because I just loved it. I love both of them, but Aislinn I loved it. But I think Aislinn in
Yes.
particular, when it comes to, it's so funny you talk about her math score, she was very good at it. So, but
Yep.
yet it's all that mindset of thinking, no, I'm not. It's because
Yeah, it's
I gotta
that
work a little bit
negative
harder.
thinking.
Right, but it's not, it wasn't true. And I think
Right.
that that's what moms of, I guess my son is creative, but he's definitely not as creative as your kids. I think the creative kids, a lot of times to me, they seem to like, I don't know, geniuses. They're really, because they can do a lot more than what they think they can. They
Yeah.
just prefer the more things that's more glittery and gold and fun and all those types of
Right.
things. So,
Well, and they're the things that attract them, almost like that fishing lure, it
right,
attracts them. They dive in and they're like instantly good at it.
right.
So anything that takes more time,
That's good.
effort,
That's good.
thought
Yeah.
process, it when it doesn't come easily and it's not fun, that's
Mhm.
when it's sort of the challenge. But that's where I keep trying to remind Aislinn, right now you're lying to yourself. You're telling yourself lies, but let me tell you the truth. The
Mhm.
truth is that you are good at math, that you are capable of logical thinking, and that just because you don't like it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you aren't successful and that you can't be successful, because you can, and you can push through the things that are harder, because part of this whole parenting gig is giving our kids tools to survive in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me too.
And so it's like that attitude of pushing through the things that are less fun so you can get to the
Mhm.
things on the other side that you do well and that you love.
Yeah, for sure. And that is, and it never goes away. And I wish
Yeah.
that it didn't, that it does, but it doesn't. And I think you have that advantage, you have the vantage point because you have two kids who are over this hump, and you
Yeah.
can see how that creative part of who they are
Mhm.
can be used. I mean, and it goes back to, again, I gotta always go back, we have to always go back to our Christian foundation, that God creates us for a reason and for a purpose. And so
Yes.
so the way we're created, even though our parents nurture us, is still, it's for a purpose that God has created us for. And we're just giving our kids for a season, for a moment. And so I think for
Mhm.
you, I always tell people I'm a little jealous because you have four tries at this.
Yeah.
You have four kids,
Yes.
and I have one. So I'm like, okay, if I got this all wrong, then it's all,
It's a one
you
and
guys all
done.
wrong, and we're just gonna have to ask the Lord to fix it all, But I think,
Yeah.
but I guess, anyways, but
Yeah.
I think the bottom line of it is that, like you're telling Aislinn, or you're telling Jonathan, you tell your girls, I'm sure, or any creative child that you've taught, because you've taught creative kids, is that this does not go away, and that you have to figure out how to work in a world that really a lot of times is very logical. And so you have
Right.
to figure out how to work in that logical world with a gift that's extremely creative and seeing out the box. Out the box thinker is what I call, creatives.
Yes.
If you can give any mom or dad, I guess, a suggestion on how to help your creative child prepare for the future of a world that's not as creative, what would you give them? What advice would you give
Right. I think that the greatest gift that we can as parents give our kids is self-confidence,
them?
because by building them up and helping them put themselves out there and be unafraid to, like you said, I got to be Chriselle.
Mm-hmm.
For my kids, I just want them to be comfortable in their own skin. And I
Mm-hmm.
want them, in terms of encouraging that self confidence, I keep trying to point them back to, but who does God say you are?
Mm.
Because I want them to know that their self confidence, for one, as parents, we kind of like take all this responsibility on ourselves, but at the end of the day, our kids are the only ones that can give themselves self esteem and self
Wow.
confidence. But
Wow.
we can be their biggest cheerleaders
Yeah.
and say, I believe in you. I know you can do this.
Mm.
And sometimes it's hard because it's sometimes easier to helicopter and do it for them.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing sometimes is stepping back, but cheering them on is actually, I think, the best gift we can give our kids.
Mm.
And they give themselves the self-confidence
Lisa, I
by
love that.
being successful.
I love that. And that's your wisdom of parenting for as long as you have. Because I think, again, I guess we call it mom guilt. I think that's what they call it.
Yes.
Mom guilt always wants to do everything for our kids because we don't want them to grow
Yes.
up to be messed up. But the
And
problem,
but they hear a different message.
they
We think
do.
we're being exceptionally helpful. And
Right.
I heard this recently, Crushell. Helpfulness is the sunny side of control.
Wow.
Because the flip side for them is they are feeling controlled. We're sending them a message with the best of intentions and all the love in our heart. We're sending them the message that we don't think they can do it. So here, honey, let me just help you with that. Let me do that for you. I still catch myself.
Wow.
Even with my 20-year-old, I still catch myself. Well, I was just trying to help you. I got to stop that
Wow.
and just say, I know you can do it, and wait for them to ask for help, but learn how, as when they're little, of course, we manage everything. I love the little days, but the big days are harder because while I think I'm being helpful, they feel like I'm being controlling. And so I have to like tiptoe back from that and say, if you want me to show you how to do something, I can, but I know you can figure this out,
Lisa,
you know?
that is like what the kids call that's gold.
The
Because
first time I heard that, I was like, oh,
I never because that can be applied to so many other different parts of life other than
yes,
raising children. Now, and you because
yes,
if you're a helper, you think
yes,
you're just helping, but sometimes you try
yes.
to control the situation.
Even with
That's
our
beautiful.
spouses,
Oh yeah,
that they feel that message that, oh, you don't think I can do
yeah.
this.
No, let me do it for you. Let me manage your whole life. Let me do it
Let me get
all.
that for you.
Wow, that's really liberating. I mean, I know you probably got
Yeah.
it somewhere else, but still, I've never heard that before. I never even thought about that way.
Yeah,
Because
I've written that
nowadays,
one down to remind
I
myself
need to write
because
that down for
some of
sure.
us have this need to be exceptionally helpful, but
Yeah.
that helpfulness, it's the sunny side of control. We want to see ourselves in the very best light and we have the best of intentions. But the flip side is, how is our child viewing us? And are they getting a subconscious message that we don't think they can do it?
Wow. That's just like drop the mic, Lisa. That's what it is. Drop the mic.
There you
That
go.
is I just don't know what to say about that, but it's so true. And if we didn't do that, we would have so much more peace,
Mhm.
especially with because I think the creative kids can drive us crazy sometimes because
Yep.
they are so all over the place, and you want to
Mhm.
manage them. But I think I remember I was telling someone that if I can turn out halfway decent, which I did, then I know my son can. Because if it's not because of
Yes.
me, it's because it really, my mom always, every mom's the same. She was always trying to help. But I think ultimately it was me, it was her letting go and then letting me make my mistakes and then letting God do what God does. And I think
Mhm.
the same thing with our children is that we have to, at some point, and it's hard because like KJ just turned, he's 15. And he was just like, to me, 9 yesterday. So it's
Yep.
hard to just like change it from, do you need this to like, no, you can do this to yourself.
Yep.
But once they make that shift, then we have to make the shift with you. Lisa, how have
Yes.
you made the shift with your adult children and even with your other two?
Yeah, well, I'm still learning, but this year in particular, my oldest daughter came home the week before Mother's Day with her husband to tell me I was going to be a grandma in December. Yeah, yes.
Yes!
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations!
Very excited about that. And my daughter said a very sweet thing to me. She said, Mom, you're going to be such an amazing grandma. And I thought, wow, for all the years that we butted heads and fought our way through things. But it's very sweet now to see that, because they're that teenage period all the way till launch. It's brutal. It's like the worst parent beatdown ever.
Yeah.
Because they're learning how to be independent and we still want to help and we just want to plan the best future possible for them, and it's hard to watch them make mistakes. But when the older ones, when they come back and they're like, Mom, thank you for what you did here, instead of hearing all that teenager pushback and you're a horrible parent and everything. When they launch and they go away, they're like, wow, we had it so good. You did so many good things, Mom.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Listen, I think
Yeah.
we all want to have that day happen. That's
Yes.
encouraging because again, I know
Yes.
you're a good mom. I know you're a great mom.
Oh, but I
And
have my days that
well,
I
but
really
we
feel
all do.
horrible.
We all do. I mean, I think the women, yeah, this. I would say the only thing that women's live really did for us was to make our life more busy. Because now we can do it, we
Yes.
can work, and now we still
Now
do
we got to do
everything
everything.
else. So it never, other part didn't go away. So thank
That's
God for
right.
them. Thank God for women's lib.
Yes,
But
exactly.
it just added on more stuff to it. So we are all
Yes.
like that. But I really appreciate you sitting down with us just to talk about creative children. Now, at the end of every at conversation, I always ask a silly question. So I'm going to do the same thing for you. So if Jesus had a favorite type of creative art, which one do you think it would be?
Well, I have spent some time thinking on the adventures that I want to have in heaven after spending lots of time with Jesus, singing with the angels, doing all my favorite things, touring the new heaven and the new earth. I think to myself, I want to explore the culinary arts and
Ooh,
do lots of painting of landscapes. And
okay.
so I often think, what are some of the jobs I want to sign up for in heaven? Like, I'd love to hang out in the library, but I'd also love to learn from the best chefs that love Jesus and just learn how to make like manna, you know? Because I'm just as curious as I can be about a dish that people were able to eat for years and not get tired of. Or maybe, well, the children of Israel did get a little bit tired
Well,
of
they
that
complain.
manna.
I think they're creative because they complain about everything. They
Yeah.
complained all the time. So I think they're
Maybe they wanted to improve on it a little
for
bit.
sure. I love that. So I think Jesus would be a chef. He'd be a culinary chef.
Maybe. I'd love to hang out with them in a kitchen and learn whatever I can, especially if it involves chocolate.
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Well, personally, I choose dark chocolate because none of my kids like it. That means they won't mess with my chocolate. It's a selfish thing, but I think in heaven it would be some sort of white chocolate truffle
Ooh, I
something.
love white chocolate. I like,
Me
yes, I do
too.
like chocolate. I like that a lot.
Me too. I just
But I
don't
would,
like to share.
no, me neither. Me neither. Lisa, this has been such an enlightening, refreshing actually, I didn't think it would not be. You're just such a kind soul. So I'm so glad you took time out of your busy schedule. Is that your dog barking?
No, it's the neighbors.
Okay, I'm sorry, dog, because I thought your dog
No,
needed you.
no, I
Thank you
don't. I
for.
guess you can't see in the background. My latest adventures are trying to outsmart the squirrels.
Oh, okay.
I just bought a new squirrel proof bird feeder yesterday, and I've got a few things out there that aren't squirrel proof to taunt them. But
Okay. Outsmart the squirrels. The
yes,
things that we do as the things that you do as a homeschool mom.
creative things. Yep.
Creative things. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us today for another episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people can know what we do and who we are. If you want to find more out about Lisa, I'm sure she'll be willing to chat with you if you're a homeschool mom.
You are
So
lovely, Chriselle. You are
thank you.
lovely.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. See you next time. Let's see here. And oh.